Today I'm going to talk about the topic of should children be told about swearing. First thing is that in this debate we're discussing about whether children in schools academics should actually told about or just have lesson about swearing. First, ladies and gentlemen, first is that we are on the proposition side strongly agree with this motion. Why do I believe so? First, about when children talk about swearing, we means that when children actually talks about this, means that when it's actually beneficial for them to using these words. For in many cases that most of this kind of lessons can tell them in bad or meaningful lessons. So in these cases, there should children be taught about swearing. And academics are unlikely because academics are unpredictable of whether children should actually taught about swearing or not. And different academics are purposes, right? There are some kind of things, some kind of purposes, and some kind of situations words are actually can be harmful. First is that words can be harmful, right? So the main thing here is that whether children should actually use this word is actually beneficial or not, right? So moving on to next here is that when this word are powerful, it's more likely when these children actually use it. So first, in some cases, is that children use this because they're making the powerful lesser, and in other cases here is that when you talk about children be taught about swearing, the more likely increases the possibility. And even though children should not be taught about swearing, in some cases when children get swearing, they're more likely to actually use the swearing word, right? So more in the second cases here is that someone when parents or teachers teach kids about swearing, they're more likely not to use a word. They have known it's meaningful, they know the meaning of this word. They can actually know it's a root or not. Children who can actually use word because they make it less powerful. Then use a word when you're friends is actually very normal. But last, well, it's also not actually one way to actually show emotions. Swear words don't actually need to be swear words don't have to actually be showing your emotions. They can actually when for example in primary school, tons of kids actually use swearing words to show their emotions, but others don't. They can actually use some words when they don't actually need to expressing their emotions as well. So those are one factor. Secondly is that they can also when we're not teaching words right, it's showing that children are actually known about words or not, they're more likely not to use it. Children and teachers can teach them about how swearing words are effective, how swearing words actually showing your emotions as well rude to others. You can use friends to your friends in other cases, but you cannot use with appropriate or older people. So yeah, those are kind of factors because in houses, parents have the possibility, have the responsibility to actually teach kids about swearing, and in school, teachers have responsibility to actually control those kids. In recess or breaks, they can actually use words freely without actually causing any problem. Children who learn about swearing can actually know if those swearing is actually good in which relations and what consequences. They can also know when or how to use words in an appropriate way. And children, when you use this word right, it's more likely that children can actually know about which or when you swearing. But sometimes in the world, swearing is actually one of the normal things to children and kids. They do not actually need to teach or know about anything. Instead, when they learn about how swearing actually tells them, they actually have the mindset actually change when they actually learn about this kind of thing. In this world, lots of children when learn about swearing, right, they are more likely not use it. And older children, they know it's rude. And even children who are in these ages, they can talk about their friends, but not their teachers. Because it's obviously it's not actually mandatory for when children actually speak to anything else. It is because it's already stayed there. In some cases, it is actually a really normal thing when children actually learn about this. When children learn about this, they're more likely to control themselves. They know these root words. It's only appropriate when you talk about children to other kids without hurting their feelings. In many cases, that the neuroscientists actually learn about study the brains and its expression. The one scientist actually mixes someone who studied the brains and also the objects around us, or a scientist to inventing stuff, actually discover that when more children should actually learn about swearing, they're more likely not to use it in front of others. When talking about swearing, it means that when you are talking about to other is appropriate way, how and when to use it. When you announce when you talk about your own parents is inappropriate, and when you talk about your teacher, also inappropriate. When you talk about your friends, more likely they didn't actually hurt their feelings at all. In some cases, swearing words didn't actually roots or didn't actually roots in emotional at all. When used appropriately, and sometimes they are using this word, they can actually make their friends mad, but in only tiny cases. When you're using this word, doesn't mean that when it's actually hurt other people's feelings. So when, for example, and the whole classes actually know about swearing, majority classes know about swearing. When and teachers don't know that you're using them. More like when the teacher when the kids are using this, they did not hurt their other feelings at all. In some tiny cases it did, but mostly 90% of those children in school use it because they did not hurt their feelings at all. And for example, in some cases in class it might happen in tons of times, and several different times. And that is, this is obviously normal. It's really normal, and when kids actually use this in front of others, except not people who are older than them or people who much more much more grown-ups than you, then that is not actually normal. So yeah, every children in the world actually knows about swearing words and when and how to use it. When they are just grown up, they don't know about swearing. More likely they did not say it or use it their emotionals. And sometimes when children be taught about swearing, we know that when children are taught about this, they're more likely not to do it. When in the case for opposition to our world, where actually kids who study them is actually bad. When children who actually heard of it, they're more likely to use it, then actually know about what is a possibility. Opposition never counted this problem, and those ruined everything. Comparing the proposition and opposition world, proposition painted a world where actually kids who learn this more likely to get improved, they're more likely to get the world a lot better without actually ruin the emotional. Opposition world, even though it's actually beneficial because when they don't talk about children about swearing words, they might actually beneficial in 70% cases, and 90% of this actually ruined. Why is this? Opposition only painted a world where these children who never learn more about swearing words cannot actually be beneficial. When they're using swearing words, they can actually build their obscene system. Now this is bad. When children heard about this, they did not use it, but more likely they use this more. When you don't teach them, when they don't teach children about swearing, they use it in different ways. For example, children who don't know about swearing words, the children that just heard about it, for example, heard when others say it, then you copy and say it to everybody. Those are very bad. When children do not learn about this, they don't know when or how to use it, how is it appropriate or not, and who to say it. So those are very possibility. Opposition will never encounter this. Secondly, is that they also been not beneficial for elder people. When children have the personality, they are have the ability to actually copy stuff. Children always copy each other. They see the elders talk about swearing word, they copy that and tell it to their parents. It's appropriate. They keep using it without any people who teaching them. Then they're more likely to actually copy those things. Those are the second part. What opposition world painted actually cause more problem than proposition. Those are why I believe we strongly opposes this proposes emotions. Those are animals listening, and goodbye.